Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another film review. And today's film review is none other than Oz the Great and Powerful. So now I'm going to start off by pointing out in this review, of course, because people have very mixed reviews on this film, that this is most probably one of the most kind of controversial stories in the land of Oz. Not purely on the basis that it is the worst film in the world, because it has some pretty good elements. But before we get into the story, I just thought I'd point out that this review is based personally on my opinion, and I am completely open to other people's opinion on this film, as I can see how it varies from my own rewatch of it. So now let's get into the story. The Great Oz the Great and Powerful starts off with a man who's working in a carnival, claiming to be this great wizard, who can perform miracles. However, one day at his show, he comes across a miracle that he can't quite perform. A young girl comes to him with a disability and asks for the ability to be able to walk. The great and powerful Oz decides that it's his time to flee, and so after rejecting the girl and not being able to fix her disability, he finds himself in a bit of a stumble. On top of this, it turns out that Oz has also got some other problems up his sleeve. For instance, he owes a lot of people money, has promised a lot of people that he'd married their daughters, and is just a great big swindler. So he decides to escape inside of his hot air balloon. This is after he confesses to a woman that he really thinks a lot of, that he is madly in love with her, although she doesn't decide to buy his carnival tricks. Instead, she decides to let him go and go on a path of self-discovery in hopes that he will finally learn his lesson for all the swindling he's ever done. Whilst in Kansas and going off in his hot air balloon, a tornado begins to appear out of nowhere and drag the great and powerful Oz off to the land of Oz. It's time for him to finally meet the Emerald City and become the king he was always meant to be. But are things in Oz really as they seem? Well, he'll have to follow the yellow brick road and find out. Upon crash landing in Oz and coming across the beautiful woman down by the stream, Oz is then led back to the Emerald City, in which he is promised thousands upon thousands of jewels, all in one kind of condition. That condition is to pretty much overthrow a witch in the forest in hopes that they will put them out of the picture. However, what he doesn't realize is the two women that he has previously encountered are the real wicked witches of Oz. Well, maybe not. One of them is definitely wicked, but the other one is poisoned by the lies of her sister and is pointed towards the ability to try and destroy the wizard. The pair of them decide that they want to take over the land of Oz for themselves. Meanwhile, elsewhere, our Oz is finding himself in the company of Glinda, who turns out to be a good witch. Glinda, along with his new best friend, the talking monkey, decide to go off on an adventure to see the land of Oz for what it is. However, before he came across Galinda, he came across a China doll who he helped mend the leg after her village was savagely attacked by flying monkeys, who have been corrupted. The wizard then goes off with Galinda, the talking monkey, and the China doll to the Munchkin land, in which he develops some technology with the help of the Munchkins to finally try and take down the two witches. However, one of the witches turns up during this and decides to scare all the Munchkins by showing how powerless the wizard really is. Eventually, he realizes the weakness of the witches, and that is his power of illusions. By using this against them, it gives Galinda or Linda a kind of advantage in this story to take down the two witches whilst they're both distracted. After eventually taking them down, the wizard and Linda, or Galinda, or whichever it is, pretty much decide to settle down in Oz, and he becomes the new king of the land of Oz. So, overall, what was my thoughts on this story? Well, it has some great elements, and it has some elements that I can't lie really tie into what eventually became Wicked. The flamboyancy of the wizard and the way that he's portrayed in this story is a very solid kind of running point for the wizard. I mean, even before Jeff Goldblum came on the scene and actually absolutely blew it away with Wicked. However, there are some controversial, and there's some people out there who are big Aussians or Wicked fans. Uh, please correct me in the comments. Have pointed out, but anyone following a lot of the Wizard of Oz canon has pointed out the inconsistencies. For instance, the two witches in this, Elphaba, who we now know to be Elphaba, is pretty much the Wicked Witch. And she was born green, and that is not something that was made by a potion. So the fact that this happens in this version, canon-wise, kind of messes a lot of things up. Secondly, the inconsistency I would also have to say in this film is the talking monkey slash flying monkey. How comes one of them is kind and nice, and yet the rest of them are savage beasts? Now, in the Wicked version, we find out that the reason that they are so corrupted is due to a magical spell gone wrong. However, in this version, there's not really any explanation for why the talking monkeys have wings, and more importantly, not really a explanation for why there's such a distinction between the pair. Now, the element I did love, and I really, really would love to see come back in a future adaptation of whether it was a musical or just something to do with the Wizard of Oz, is I would love to see the China Doll town again. It doesn't have to be tons of people, but the kind of crucial point of the funny side of having a talking China doll who is portrayed as a little girl, but then is also kind of a badass, butt kicking assassin. Absolutely love. Someone pick this up somewhere, please. The idea for this hole to be like tied through the music box, I also thought was a brilliant idea. I would love to see it pop up again somewhere. And the final element I've got to say that I really loved in this film is the idea of the flowers and the plant life just being alive in general. So, Oz, the Great and Powerful. What do I give overall? Well, as I said, there's a couple inconsistencies. There's a couple of great elements. The black and white was a brilliant addition as well, what I should have mentioned earlier. But overall, I do feel like there's quite a couple strong points in this story. However, I do feel like it's let down by some absences in the plot, and also kind of messing with the canon a little bit too far. And for that reason, I give Oz the Great and Powerful at least a solid 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next film review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night.